Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thanks for joining. This is the second of two identical sessions to bring some of our key friends and supporters up to date on our work at the Friends of Friendship Park. I'm John Fanestil. I've been a part of the Friends of Friendship Park Steering Committee for many years, and for the last couple of years have been serving as a convener of the steering committee of the Friends of Friendship Park. I'll say more about that role, my role, the steering committee's role, and the organizational transformation that we're seeking to undergo in this year of 2024, which is a transition year. I'm going to share a report. This is kind of a formal readout of a strategic planning process that we've been through over the last 6 months. So I'm going to share my screen and walk you through this in, I hope, about 15 minutes or so, just to bring you up to date on where we're headed as an organization. So our strategic plan is for the coming years, beginning in the year 2024. And in this readout, I'll share with you our work in clarifying our self-understanding as an organization, who we are. I'll share a brief word about this strategic plan. I'll then share some program highlights and also the work we're doing to grow our organizational capacity. We spent considerable amount of time clarifying and defining who we are as an organization. And to do so, we felt we needed to answer some fundamental questions. What is Friendship Park? Friendship Park is a public park and cross-border meeting place at the western end of the US-Mexico border on Kumeyaay land. At Friendship Park, people from both sides of the border meet up to nurture the land, break bread together, make new friends, and celebrate the culture and heritage of La Frontera. Why is Friendship Park important? Friendship Park is a contested space where competing narratives about the US-Mexico border are played out continually on the ground. Again and again, the US federal government has asserted the narrative of colonialism and conquest on the border, inscribing this narrative on the landscape in the form of monuments, fences, and walls. But the peoples of the US-Mexico border region have claimed Friendship Park as a site of peaceful, fruitful, cross-cultural encounter, a place of belonging and friendship. Who are the Friends of Friendship Park? We, the Friends of Friendship Park, are the custodians of this space at the US-Mexico border, champions of its enduring message of amistad across borders, and advocates for its future as International Friendship Park. A member of our steering committee said, as part of our conversations in this regard, we are the champions of an encounter narrative at the border. What we do, rooted in our lived experience at this iconic location, we promote and facilitate the use of Friendship Park by people on both sides of the border. We take the message and experience of amistad across borders to audiences around the world, and we advocate for what will someday become International Friendship Park. And why we do it? We believe the legacy of colonialism, conquest, violence, and militarization on the US-Mexico border needs to be challenged. By promoting the legacy of peace, friendship, cross-cultural encounter, and human solidarity, we are revealing the hidden history of the US-Mexico border and reimagining its future. About this plan, our leadership networks have dedicated themselves across 6 months to a strategic planning process, which has resulted in this plan. Here's a brief overview. A group of us, principally composed of steering committee members and a few core team or staff members, gathered for a retreat in September. And out of that retreat, we launched into a number of working groups. 6 working groups involving 36 participants worked across several months to elaborate different parts of this plan. The leadership team reconvened just in February, early February, 12 of us, to kind of put the finishing touches on this plan. And now this plan will be referred to our steering committee, which will meet in March. There are 15 current active members of the steering committee, which really has functioned in many ways more and more like a board of directors and is an accountability system for this year of transition. I want to say a special thanks in this regard to Matthew Lieber, who served as our consultant through the strategic planning process, and to Mona Kuzinski, who represented the steering committee and really guiding this process along its way. So this is the result of a leadership network that engaged across several months of intensive conversation. Here's a kind of high-level overview of the key programs, program highlights, if you will, that we envision being the center of our work for the coming years. The program areas are to celebrate and elevate, I might say, the work of the comunidad, the community at Friendship Park, to open Friendship Park, by which we mean opening the access to the US side of this international meeting space, to take the spirit of the park, Amistad, on the road, and to build that park, about which I'll say more in just a minute. With regard to celebrating and elevating comunidad, our goal is to promote and facilitate the use of the park. Our network of leaders receives dozens, I venture to say hundreds of inquiries every year of people wishing to use Friendship Park on the US side. And people wanting to use the park on the US side face all kinds of obstacles to doing that. Hence the work of our Open Friendship Park campaign, which will be next on my list. But in the meantime, the park is fantastically well used on the Mexico side. On the Mexico side, Friendship Park is a vibrant meeting place with all kinds of energy and activity. And I just want to share briefly one magazine article which illustrates the rich complexity of life on the Mexican side. This is a single Sunday, just one day in the life of Friendship Park. It happens to have been February 5th, 2020, which was the last day that the US side of Friendship Park was open to the public. So it's been over 4 years now since the public has had access to the international meeting place. But in a single Sunday, really in just a couple of hours, the San Diego Magazine photographer Ariana Dressler, I think she was on site for something less than 4 hours, captured the following glimpses of life on the Mexico side of the park. An accordion player busking for his living, a student concert at the site of the historic monument, which is the center of the park, family reunions, any number of family reunions, which is characteristic of the weekend visiting hours on the US side. The Border Church experience, which gathers every Sunday afternoon, both for a worship service and for a community meal that feeds over 100 people, a hot, nutritious meal, free and open to the community. The ongoing work in the cross-border garden led by Dan Wattman, who you'll hear from in a little bit. And then artists and muralists giving a life to what we sometimes call a perpetual canvas, which is the south side of the border wall. It's a rare thing that there's not somebody doing something creative and expressing themselves in the form of art. And then also just the general life of a public plaza, including vendors, and the park is surrounded by the community of Playas de Tijuana, which is a vibrant community and a landmark destination for Tijuanenses, especially on the weekends. And lastly, that day, a group of Estadounidenses who were sadly shut out from access to federal property and having to either demonstrate and protest in hopes of gaining access or being restricted in access, as the folks here are on the beach on the US side. So I wanted to share that with you just to emphasize how the unique potential of this site and why we're committed to both promoting and facilitating the use of the park, but also to documenting and disseminating life at the park. Every single instance that I mentioned of life on the Mexico side is really a missed opportunity, because every single one of those instances could have been a cross-border experience were Friendship Park the place that it was designed to be, which is a cross-border meeting place. As part of this, we'll also continue to elevate the work of our community partners, and at the top of the list of our community partners would be the Cross-Border Garden and the Border Church. These are two ongoing programs and leadership teams that carry out their work ongoingly at Friendship Park. And there are many, perhaps many of you are familiar with Friendship Park because of one of these one of these endeavors. But really, these are just the two most prominent of a long list of community partners, folks who use the park or want to use the park. And our goal is to, by elevating and celebrating the work of the comunidad, the community at Friendship Park, is to expand and support the large number of people who would use the park if it were available. Dan Watman is our key contact for this work in Comunidad. I'll share his contact information as well at the end, but if you'd like to learn more about the Comunidad work of Friendship Park, please feel free to contact Dan. Our second major effort is to open Friendship Park, referring specifically to the US side of Friendship Park. And to do that, there are three elements that need to be accomplished. First, we have to increase people's ability to get to the state park. Friendship Park is surrounded in the United States by California's Borderfield State Park. And even to get to the entrance of Borderfield State Park, you have to travel along a road called Monument Road that is frequently flooded, especially during the rainy season here in San Diego. And so there's ongoing work, especially with the city of San Diego and the county of San Diego, to ensure that people can get to Borderfield State Park. The next challenge, though, is getting through Borderfield State Park, because Borderfield State Park, both the vehicle and pedestrian trails through the state park are also subject to frequent flooding. So working with the state park on improving and ultimately rerouting the vehicle road is another top priority. And that effort will become a real focus of our work here in the coming months. You'll be hearing an invitation to join the Open Friendship Park campaign soon. And then the third element of this effort is to reclaim Friendship Park, which is the meeting place on the US side. It's on federal property. And this requires that we hold San Diego Border Patrol accountable to their promises. The promises of US Border Patrol were made official in a March 23 letter from Troy Miller, who was at that time acting commissioner, but now is the full commissioner of Customs and Border Protection. So in March of 2023, Troy Miller committed in writing that CBP is committed to allowing visitors on the US side of the border with access to Friendship Park through a gate in the secondary fence each Saturday and Sunday for 4 hours each day for 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. for a maximum of 25 visitors at a time. Access to the park will be coordinated with US Border Patrol after construction is complete. So our efforts to reclaim Friendship Park will involve our re-engaging specifically with San Diego Sector US Border Patrol and to push for greater access to the US side of the park. Beginning with the effort to hold Border Patrol accountable to the promises it has put in writing through the course of our recent campaign. Leading this Open Friendship Park campaign in the coming year will be Seth Clark, who's known to many of you as the pastor of the Border Church. And so if you'd like to learn more about the Open Friendship Park campaign, I'd encourage you to reach out to Seth at that email address or by another means if you know how to contact him. But you'll be hearing from us soon because, as I said, Open Friendship Park will be one of our leading projects. You'll be hearing from us within a matter of weeks about our Open Friendship Park campaign. Taking Amistad on the road is a third major emphasis. We recognize that because the US side of the park is difficult to get to at times and is considered in a remote corner of the county by some San Diegans who just never get that far south, we recognize that we need to take the spirit and the experience of Friendship Park on the road. And we're excited to have several opportunities to do that in the coming years. With the support of the Conrad Previs Foundation, 3 local artists, fronteriza artists, Maria Teresa Fernandez, Natalia Ventura, and Nancy Muro, will be taking their artwork generated from their experiences on site at Friendship Park. And we'll be taking their artwork and their documentary photographs on the road to locations in both San Diego and Tijuana. That project is in a design phase now, but you'll hear of the launch events this fall and then continuing on into 2025. And we're excited that Maria Teresa, Natalia, and Nancy will have a chance to introduce audiences to Friendship Park who might otherwise not have ever taken the time to visit the park itself. A couple of our steering committee members, Diane Keeling and Katie Santos, are also launching a Friendship Park archive project in collaboration with the San Diego Museum of Us. This will be an archive presumably housed at the museum to be determined, but it will include a wide range of materials that are compiled from the community as an archive. Diane and Katie will be hosting some community gatherings as part of the San Diego Tijuana World Design Capital Program this summer. And you'll hear more about that opportunity. If you yourself are a documentarian or a photographer or an artist or a cultural worker of some kind who have had engagement with Friendship Park, we'll want to capture your story and share the wealth of your resources. There are other projects in the pipeline here, but I'm not at liberty to discuss them, but I'll have more coming soon on this work of taking Amistad on the road. This is just an image from Maria Teresa Fernandez, and I thought I would just share it with you just as a glimpse of the kind of historical archive that Maria Teresa will be bringing to bear. You can feel free to contact me about this Taking Amistad on the Road program. For now, I'll be the point person on that, but there will be others taking leadership on different elements of this as we move forward. And then finally, Build That Park. The Build That Park program really includes two components: design International Friendship Park and build International Friendship Park. The design International Friendship Park endeavor is being led by our friend Jim Brown, whose firm is called Public Architecture. Jim, all the way from almost 20 years, has been working on designs at this site, and he'll be unveiling a future vision, a visionary design for a truly international park. He'll be unveiling that to the public this fall, also as part of the San Diego Tijuana World Design Capital Program. So you'll hear more about that come this fall. We're using the banner of Build That Park as an umbrella to hang over it, because Jim's work will create a very experiential, you'll have models, real 3D models, but also visual and digital models that will kind of put flesh on the bones of what he's been talking about for years, which is how a truly international park could be made to work and function at this unique location. So stay tuned for that. The Build That Park component here, the Build International Friendship Park component of this, is really an extension of our ongoing advocacy work. While our efforts in 2023 to stop the construction of walls were not successful, they did mobilize an extraordinary network of organizational allies. Over 100 organizations signed on to letters in defense of Friendship Park, and also congressional allies. We have a robust network of members of Congress, and that's growing as well. And I'm confident that when we get our case in front of members of Congress, people respond affirmatively. 17 members of Congress from California signed on in defense of Friendship Park last year. And I'm convinced that if we had gotten in the office of many more, we would have many more signatures. So this Build That Park campaign will be led, the design component would be led by Jim, and I'll be the point person on the build advocacy campaign. And suffice it to say that this is a long-term vision, of course, because the outcome here, the desired outcome here, would really require action at the federal level. It would require an act of Congress, perhaps to create, for instance, a pedestrian-only port of entry. It would require the endorsement and support of California's 2 sitting senators and California's governor. It would require action by presumably the presidents of both countries, both in the United States and Mexico. So this is a long-term vision, but it's a vision that is reflective of what we know to be the true potential of this site. We're convinced it can become a landmark location and a place from which the story of the US-Mexico border is retold and reinterpreted, a counter narrative of the border. Friendship Park is the place from which we can tell that story. To do all this, of course, we need to grow our capacity. And just as a brief summary, as a part of this strategic plan, we have committed and are in the process of filing for our own nonprofit incorporation. For the last decade or so, the Friends of Friendship Park have operated under the fiscal sponsorship of the nonprofit organization Via International, where I've been on staff for the last 4 years. But Coming soon, I'll be going full time with the Friends of Friendship Park, and the Friends of Friendship Park will be separating out from VIA, creating its own 501c3 and beginning to operate as a standalone nonprofit. As part of that, our steering committee, which has been a leadership body well in place, long trusted relationships and a strong group, will be transitioning to a formal board of directors. But even as it does that, we'll be launching a board development and nominating committee to identify new prospects and new candidates for the board, with the hope of building out a board that would include a wider reach and perhaps access to some networks and connections and resources that we have not had access to in the past. That's about the summary I wanted to share. And so what I'm going to do is close this out with just an invitation. The Friends of Friendship Park are in a transition year of 2024, but there's opportunities for you to become involved in any number of ways. We do invite your financial support, and especially we're going to be encouraging, starting March 1st, people to sign on as monthly donors to the organization. We have about 20 folks who have made a monthly commitment at different levels, and building out that sustaining support of monthly donors is an important part of our resource development plans. We also are pleased to benefit this year from support from not just the Conrad Previs Foundation, as I mentioned, but also the California Endowment. And we're also entering into collaborative partnerships that will bring additional funding our way, about which I'll be able to say more in the coming months. So it's an exciting time of transition. My hope is that you'll feel a part of this transition. And again, if you'd like to become engaged in the Comunidad work, please reach out to Dan Watman. If you'd like to become involved in the Open Friendship Park campaign, please reach out to Seth Clark. And if you'd like to be a part of the Taking Amistad on the Road project and outreach, or part of the Build That Park campaign, please feel free to reach out to me. At the end of the day, you know where to find us, and you can connect with any of us, and we'll get you connected in the way that would be most helpful to you. So with that, I'm going to close this brief overview. Thanks to those of you who participated in these strategic planning sessions. And seguimos en conversación. We'll continue the conversation. Thanks so much.